Because we have on the screen with us now independent journalist Georgia Fort, and we have none other than our historian, brother Carl Mack. Thank you all for listen. Y'all been hanging out every day. Y'all are like here. Y'all are here, part of this, what we're doing. But I
Yes.
think this is the first time that we've had all of us on the screen, and the only person we're missing, and I miss my sister, Rebecca Azor. She is
She
somewhere
is
on somebody's vacation on somebody's beach,
living her
living her
best
best life.
life. Man, if you look at the I'm sure everybody has seen it, her Instagram story, man, I'm jealous as hell.
I haven't even I haven't seen them yet, but this is not the first time. And actually, so we were on yesterday. Obviously, we had the big panel, and it was an amazing panel. Thank you for everyone who helped put that together, because there was so much power on that panel yesterday. But
Yes,
I
it
think
was.
this is the first time where it's just been the four of us. So Georgia, welcome.
Yeah, no, it is always a pleasure to be here. And man, we got a lot to discuss.
Oh
But
my
I'm ready to go
gosh.
on a vacation too. So
Yes.
James, I feel you. I'm overdue.
Yeah.
Okay, way overdue.
Yeah, and then obviously Professor Mack, Dr. Mack, thank you so much for joining us again, and thank you for really well a lot. We talk about offline, but also thank you for being such a huge contributor to this show, particularly as it pertains to our history. Um, because I can ask, well, I don't have Google, hey Google, but if you do, what happened in Black history on today? If I needed to find out what happened in Black history on today, how could I find that out?
Well, obviously from the calendar. Well, first of all, good morning to you all, Georgia, DJ, and Brother Ben.
Yes,
But
sir.
if you had the calendar, every day of the year, somebody featured out of Black history, and today we're celebrating Benjamin O. Davis Sr., who was the first Black to be promoted to the rank of general in the United States Army, and then his son,
Nice.
B.O. Davis Jr., is of claim fame for leading the 99th Pursuit Squadron, which you better know as the Tuskegee Airmen.
Just
Nice.
wow. So and I thought that you know what? Shame on reach behind you and grab the calendar and look at it. You
Right.
have from memory.
Oh, no, man. I woke up this morning and every day I walk into the kitchen, I start my day with, hey, Google, what happened on this day in Black
Ah,
history? So I get a little reminder.
there you go.
But
There you go.
I also want to say that I'm repping the institution for which I received my mechanical engineering degree, Mississippi State, because last night, for the first time in the school's history, they won a national championship by winning the College World Series. And because I saw a brother out there in left field, I said, yeah, we'll rep him today.
That's
So,
all right. That's all
Yes,
right. Well,
indeed.
congratulations to Mississippi State.
hell,
Um, somebody said Hell Wildcats. I thought I heard somebody say Hell something.
hell state, baby.
Oh, Hell State. Okay. I heard Hell, and I thought I heard Hell Wildcats. Well,
Wildcats, right.
we have a lot coming up that we're going to discuss today. Obviously, the top thing on a lot of people's minds is Bill Cosby, his release, the issue with Felicia Rashad, and we're gonna discuss it gloves off. Like I had a chance to speak with everyone, and I'm like, listen, even if we disagree on it, it is a conversation that Black folks need to be having. And
Yes.
and I don't want and we'll talk about it. I don't want to get too deep into it now because we have Tara Samples also coming up. She is one of the senior advisors for the Nina Turner campaign for Congress for the 11th district in Ohio. And we're going to discuss the campaign as well as the endorsement that Jim Clyburn gave the opposition. And we're going to discuss that. There are two two dynamic Black women running for Congress there in the state of Ohio, the 11th district. But I've made it clear on this show that me and Sister Turner go way back. So Tara Samples is coming from that campaign, and she's going to speak with us about that. And then obviously Representative Chris Rabb from Philadelphia. He is going to come and he is going to participate in this discussion about critical race theory. He normally talks about reparations with us, but we're going to talk about critical race theory, and then I'm sure we're going to dovetail some reparations talk in there for our friend Dr. Mack. That said, all of that is to come. I just believe that it's us. I don't want I don't want white media to tell us how we should respond, particularly to Felicia Rashad. I don't particularly care what y'all do with Bill, and we're gonna play the clips. We're gonna go through the conversation, and that's gonna come up. We do have to go to some other conversations first, but just that much of it, I think I would love to go around the table, Georgia, but without getting into, because if we get into the depth of it, we're going to be there for a while. I just want to know, what is your feeling on who? I feel like black folks should be the defining voice for whether or not they're trying to cancel Felicia Rashad. They're trying to get her removed from Howard University. I'm not personally with that. And feel free to speak your piece, even if you are.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that she's not wrong for using her voice. And let's be clear, she's not the one who was facing any kind of charges, right? And so if she goes on her personal social media page and she says whatever she wants to say about her friend, her colleague, someone that she worked with for decades, a defining part of her life, really. The legacy of that show far exceeds, I think, anything that any of the people on the show have done outside the show. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, how can you fault her for just basically commenting on the fact that he got out and saying how she feels about it? And so I saw she did a tweet after her initial tweet, which was that there had been a miscarriage of justice. And she didn't elaborate on what she meant by that. And now we know for a fact returned, even if it was on a technicality, right? That is still a miscarriage of justice.
Exactly.
So we'll talk. The people. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, because we could get deep with it. We could get deep with it real quick, and that is a conversation that we're going to have, because there are levels, there's nuances to this. Because there was an overzealous prosecution, and there was 60. No, I don't want to miss a single one. 60 accusers. So there's a lot to talk about, and we'll come back to it. I want to bring on, and we just lost her camera. So David, let me know if we're able. I want to bring in Councilwoman Tara Samples into the conversation and join us to discuss not that last conversation for sure, but the conversation about the race in the 11th district of Ohio. And I think we're going to have to pause for a second. So we're going to get her camera back so that we can see her as well as hear her. Dr. Mack, we talked about this. What are your general feelings about it? And you can save the best for last, because as soon as Dr. Councilwoman Samples comes back on, we're going to go to that conversation. Go for it.
You know, and the bottom line is I agree so much with what Sister Ford said, you know, as it applies to Sister Rashad being able to express her thoughts, her sentiments about it. That's fine, because one of the things that, you know, that I did yesterday was I called up a plethora of people to just get their feelings about it. And it was as mixed as it could be. You know, for some reason, white America wants to think that we're one homogeneous group with one homogeneous thought. And this is an example where we as Black folks have different thoughts about the exact same issue. And so, you know, I certainly appreciated the fact that that she was able to express her opinion about it. Now, the idea that council culture is going to try to come in and try to remove her again, you know, as Sister Ford said, there were no allegations against Sister Rashad. And in her relationship with Mr. Cosby, she has every right to express her joy about the fact that he was released. Now, when it comes to, was it a miscarriage of justice? You know, that's what the debates will all be about. But there is no debate that he was released because of a technicality that in effect can affect all of us. How many times does the legal system, the drug game, you know, let's take the mob, for instance, when all of a sudden they grab one of them, and before that person started talking, they had to make a deal with the prosecution. And when they made that deal is the deal. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent is the deal. So now you got another prosecutor saying, no, I'm going to renege on that. So what the technicality was, the state Supreme Court said, based on that, he was not afforded due process. So from that standpoint, you know, what she stated is a miscarriage of justice. From that standpoint, yes. But now on the other side of it, when you look at those women and the allegations that they had and what was uncovered from his testimony, his deposition, where he, the question was a little bit later, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
overall, Sister Rashard expressing her sentiments. I guarantee you, if you put 1,000 Black folks on here, I doubt very seriously you're gonna get overwhelming majority who feels
One way or the other.
one way or the other.
One way or the other. Yeah. No, because James, like when we first spoke about this, like we were.
No, I was going to say on Felicia Rashad, she stated what happened. Miscarriage of justice. It was a miscarriage of justice if you technically think about it. It really was. So trying to cancel Felicia Rashad, y'all can go somewhere, but that's not going to happen with Mama.
Yeah. Listen. Like I don't even know how old Felicia Rashad is. It don't matter. She is one of our elders.
Yes.
And she is now the dean. And I like what Howard said. So there's a whole lot. We're still having some technical issues with our first guest. And so we'll come back and circle back to that conversation. But it is totally okay that Black folks have a difference of opinion on this. But I think this isn't when it comes to Felicia Rashad and y'all trying to counsel her. Nah, that's not something for MSNBC to decide. That's not something for CNN to decide. That's not something because she's at Howard University. You see, she's at a HBCU. This is something for Black folks to decide. And as disgusting as this, and we're going to play a clip of this, but I don't want to play much of it because one thing is for sure. I think we all agree on with 60 accusers. And with his own, we have a clip. The very first clip I want to play is so that everyone is clear. Can't speak for nobody else on the screen. Bill Cosby was on Larry King Live years ago, and Bill Cosby confessed to putting quaaludes, putting drugs. I don't know if he said quaaludes, but because it's been a long time since I saw the clip. But we have the clip. We're going to play the clip. And he just admits it. Run that clip for me so we can start.
Spanish fly was the thing that all boys from age 11 on up to death, we will still be searching for Spanish fly. That's right. And what was the old story was if you took a little drop, it was on the head of a pin.
That's right.
And
Drop
you put
it in
it in
a
the drink.
Coca-Cola. Don't matter.
It doesn't make it. And the girl would drink it, and
she's yours.
Hello, America. No, we don't answer that.
Okay.
Cut that part. Larry King, wait, is Larry King even still alive? It's been a while.
Sounded like he was with it too.
Yeah,
Exactly, Georgia.
He's
He
alive.
sounded like he was. He knew.
Larry King passed.
He knew.
Yeah.
He was finishing the sentence for him.
And
So
let's be clear. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's be clear. Even with what Felicia Rashad said in terms of this is a miscarriage of justice, she never dismissed the allegations.
Absolutely.
She never minimized the allegations or women's experiences. And so the unfortunate thing, and this is where it gets complex, and I don't like to air out family business outside of the family, but I will say that there are other Bill Cosbys in our community, older men that have been problematic, that say things, that make comments, that do things. And so there has also been a culture in our community where even I remember grandmothers would, when they had their grandbabies over, sleep in the room with the grandbabies and leave their husband in the room by themselves to protect the children because there has been abuse that has happened from older men. And obviously this is not everybody, but it is a reality. And, in our community, in our culture, sometimes, you have that one uncle that's just funny. And it is kind of a thing. It becomes a thing within families. And so there's a broader issue here, an underlying issue here that I think if we took the opportunity to address it, could help advance our culture, is how do you deal with people who are abusive? What is the appropriate way to deal with that? Especially when you're talking about, in his case, it was women, but sometimes you have those people who cross the line and start doing this to our young people.
Yeah.
So how do you confront it, and how do you address it in a way where it doesn't cause divide? And so the thing, although this is a very sensitive topic because of the complexities, the reality is that Bill Cosby was released from based on a technicality, and it's not to minimize anybody's experiences, but people get so caught up, especially victims, other people who have experienced abuse, they can't separate their own experience and trauma, and they're projecting that on him. And so it's a very complex thing, and it should be a conversation that's handled delicately, but it's still a conversation that we need to have for so many reasons. We need to have this conversation because we need to be talking about why the criminal justice system continues to fail Black men and how they end up incarcerated, even though there was a technicality that they shouldn't have. We need to talk about the abuse that's happening in our community. We need to talk about why in the world could a national television talk show host go and have a guest and they could sit there and he about drugging women.
Yes.
But Georgia, the other aspect to it is, when you say within our culture, we all, if you go back through history, there was a time when grown men were marrying 12 and 15-year-old girls. Yeah. And this wasn't in our community. This was in America in general. So this type of behavior has been pervasive throughout this country. And so again, I have to go back to what Brother Ben said. I stand on the side, even when we're talking about, if we spend so much time talking about the technicality of what happened, it does minimize, whether we intend to or not, it does minimize what happened, because I keep thinking to myself, what if one of those women were my daughter, my mother, my sister? I don't care about the technicality. That fool was wrong. And especially, even when you talk about the technicality, part of what was so convincing to me and a light shined on the situation was that when that deal was made, that's when Cosby sat in that deposition and they asked him, have you ever purchased Quaaludes for the purpose of drugging women for sex? And his answer was yes. That piece, usually in a trial of some heinous crime, you're looking for the evidence. Well, the evidence couldn't have been any clearer when the man himself says what he says. And now you add to that this conversation between he and Larry King. And the most dangerous part of what Cosby said, all boys. I was a boy. I ain't never played around with no Spanish flies.
Never.
As far as I'm concerned, when real men don't do that, we don't roll like that. So I have as far as the sensitivity towards those victims, that is when you say it's a complex issue, without question it's complex. But from the victim standpoint, it is absolutely insane that many women can come and talk about the same story. And then this man says, yes, that's what I did. And now, through a technicality, he's free. It's horrible.
Let's take a look at the video, this press conference. And I don't want to play it all because, again, we all agree here on this screen, not the entirety of the Black community. We don't speak for the Black community. We just speak for those who agree with us. And we agree that 60 people, 60 women, the evidence is there. The reason he is out is because of a technicality, and that is salt in the wound of those victims. And it is a complex issue. So that's the reason I'm not going to play this entire thing, because as the attorney speaks, the rhetoric that he uses is offensive, but I do think we need to listen to it. And so let's take a listen.
Always use his celebrity, his name, his likeness to uplift women. This is a man who refused to perform at the White House for Nixon. Nixon put him on a accompanist list in the 60s, along with so many other great names like Dick Gregory, Jane Fonda. How could a man who was being watched by the FBI every day be raping and drugging women in the 60s or 70s, especially a Black man? Today, innocence came to Mr. Cosby with the help of these wonderful attorneys. These are women and men who from all walks of life. As I said earlier, James Brown made a song, it's a man's world. There would be nothing without a woman and girl.
right,
Mrs. Cosby was that woman. For 57 years, the queen, the matriarch, we got one of the
Part of the team that we put together. Very proud to be part of this case.
That's enough.
We always thought.
Like, what they should have done was carry their asses
inside
and just go on and sit down somewhere. But y'all out here celebrating like y'all are. Go ahead, Bubba.
And it's crazy because you making it sound like that he didn't do this. How can a man not do XYZ? But here it is. He admitted to it. He said yes. So don't come out here and make it seem like he did nothing wrong. When he admitted that he did something wrong, he went on a whole damn national TV show in '91 and admitted to putting Spanish fly in the girl's drink. So I mean, it's crazy for the attorneys to even come out there and even justify him in that situation. His comments should have been on the technicality. Mr. Cosby was released and left it at that, because you made a deal, which means you admitted fault that you did this. So don't come out here making it seem like that he did nothing at all. When you have other victims out here, these victims out here that have gone through it and experienced this, it is salt in the wound. It's like a slap in the face, a hard slap in the face.
Yeah, and the other aspect to try to change the narrative that he's uplifting all women. I remember when I was the chief servant of the Seattle King County NAACP, and I remember the number of calls that I got from white radio stations because Cosby was talking about what women ain't doing, talking about single mothers and what they ain't doing. And I took it personally because he was talking about my mama. I know that Nikki Giovanni had issues with it when Cosby sat within the national convention of the NAACP and just absolutely dogged black women, as far as I was concerned, dogged black men, telling us what we weren't doing. And look, I don't mean to get too absolute personal, but raising children is, there's no guarantees of that. And you look at the troubles that, the issues he was having with his own families. But again, to come out and talk about, that was a blanket statement about all single black mothers. And so to now come in and talk about him uplifting, and again, just because you've done good publicly doesn't mean that your entire life is like that. And I think a lot of us got confused because we couldn't differentiate Dr. Huxtable with Dr. Cosby. See, it was tough for us to do that. And again, with that philanthropic life that he was living, take a look at one of the most philanthropic men, in the world, Bill Gates. Now all of a sudden, we're understanding that Gates was running around with Jeffrey Epstein. So, we don't know what's going on in that private side. But, again, I remember looking at a lot of video footage, and Bill Gates was hanging out with the Playboy, Hugh Hefner, up in the Playboy mansion. So I'm just saying. And through that, I remember asking some of the sisters about that. Like, if you have that kind of access to sex, why would you go and drug women? And every one of the sisters said the same thing to me. They said, Carl, because it wasn't about sex. It was about control. That's why the drug was in there. But that was their perspective, and I'm sharing that.
Well, and I think you bring up a valid point of people not being able to separate Bill Cosby as an individual from the character that he portrayed on scene, and when you look at even that time period, that era, you talked about him calling out single mothers. We know that single family homes were at an all-time high. And so a lot of people grew up and Dr. Huxtable was the only father figure that they knew.
Yeah.
So you're also thinking of the psychology aspects of how you're asking people to crucify the only father they've known, right? And so there's that dynamic. But on the other hand, you can't deny the evidence, as we've pointed out. You cannot deny the fact that he's admitted this, and that you have 60 women who have come forward and said that he did this to me. And so for me, even though, Ben, I think you said something like it's not complex. You got 60 victims. Yeah. When you look at it that way, It's not complex at all. But when you look at the fact that this was the first time America had a Black father figure that had this success in Hollywood, it gets complex also when you're talking about him being in people's homes every single day, and for some people being the only father that they were raised with. So I think that's, and the timing. So we know in America historically that when Black people are approaching greatness or really become, leaders, like what we saw with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, when people are in the Black community reaching a certain level of accomplishment, historically, there has been an assassination. And if it's not a physical assassination that claims their life, an assassination of their character. And so I think people were also very skeptical because of the timing of when this happened, because Bill Cosby, if you remember, before all of these allegations came forward, he was in negotiations to buy a network. And so the timing, I think a lot of people were pointing to the timing. And so a lot of people were skeptical and were having reservations on believing these women. And so, I think as a woman myself who knows people who have been affected by this issue, I absolutely believe the victims. I saw the evidence. We just watched the clip where he admitted to doing it. But I think that when we're going to have this conversation about Bill Cosby, that we should talk about it in the way that it's 3D, because there are layers, and there's layers to why people are polarized on this issue. Just even in the Black community, people are on all sides of the spectrum of this issue, and for valid reasons.
And Georgia, let's throw a little historical insight into single Black men.
Let me only because we have a second guest that we need to get in real quick and hold that historical context for the B side of this conversation, because we're going to flesh this out. We have to. There's so many layers here that we have to flesh out. And we're going to do as many as we can in the time that we have. But I want to bring on Representative Chris Rabb. He is state representative from Pennsylvania's 200th district. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. We did tell you that we wanted to discuss some clips for some critical race theory, but we brought you in the heat of the conversation, and I saw you had some comments. So I would be remiss if I didn't give you a chance to say what's on your mind about this topic.
You sure you want that?
Well, keep in mind, my kids are watching, Representative. So okay, yes, but go in that context, say what you got to say.
Well, I appreciate being back on the show, and I love the exchange. Listen, he broke my heart, but he broke my heart long before I knew he was a sexual predator. He broke my heart when he revealed his true self, what he thought about poor Black folk.
Yes.
He revealed himself when he chose Coke over the divestment movement in South Africa. He broke my heart when he supported menstrual capitalism, where he wanted to be the head Negro of a major network. When we talk about success, I mean, we implicate ourselves. There are forms of success that don't really do much for Black folk, even though it amasses a lot of money for the folks who make the deals and the people around them. But if you are simply replicating systems of oppression, then I can't show you the love, because listen, I can relate to a Dr. Huxtable. I grew up in that kind of environment. I didn't need a Dr. Huxtable. It was an affirmation, but I had that at home. And there are other Black folk who experienced similar dynamics. It was not the first. He did not create it. It was not fiction. We're talking about multiple generations of Black middle class folk, the most important of whom did not have a lot of financial wealth, but helped Black generation meaningful ways, often behind the scenes. That was meaningful to me. Him becoming a bigger part of the problem by amassing more wealth meant absolutely nothing to me. And we are implicated in reveling around that type of ambition, because that's the ambition that will kill us collectively.
I not to take away from anything that you're saying,
Like
but
it or not.
my God, like it or not,
Right? Yes,
that was I absolutely love when people come through this. I mean, the folks who black folks got something to say, y'all. We got the analysis because Representative Rabb, what you said right there is the absolute spot on truth. Now, because I know you're short on time, I wanna move to a couple other things that I want to discuss with you. Critical race theory has become the new boogeyman, and it has become the war on Christmas. It's become the war on terror. It's become the welfare queen. It's become the rallying cry through which white supremacy gets to get away with their dog whistles on the national stage. And you've been talking about it extensively. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, you contextualized it quite well. It is whatever. It's tofu. Tofu doesn't taste like anything, right? It's how you cook it, right? So if you give it to a white supremacist chef, you know what it's going to taste like. So they don't even know. I went up to the dude, my colleague in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, who introduced the bill to ban critical race theory from being taught in public schools K through 12, which is funny because it's not taught presently. In fact, critical race theory is only taught in a handful of law schools and graduate level graduate schools of education. It's not expansive, but he didn't know what critical race theory was, and I kind of knew it because he's not a bright man or particularly invested in due diligence. So I approached him. I went to the right side of the aisle, which very few Democrats go, particularly black, in the state legislature, full-time state legislature in the country. So it's this massive room, and I was surrounded by red. And I went up to him and I said, hey, I actually know some critical race theory professors. Would you like to speak with them? Because I see that you have, in your overview of your forthcoming bill, mischaracterized what it is. And I thought, if you want to know, I can introduce you to some practitioners. He says, no, I'm good. Okay, that's interesting. So I lean over to the majority chair of agriculture, another conservative who I have a decent relationship with. And I said, Chairman, you know, I would never introduce a farming bill without talking to an actual farmer. And he just chuckled. So the guy says, oh, well, you know, I talked to the parents and the parents don't like what's going on in the schools. And, you know, we should just talk about how everyone is equal and so forth. I said, you mean everybody who's straight? And he just looked at me quizzically. And I said, well, you know, obviously in Pennsylvania, LGBTQ Pennsylvanians are second-class citizens. Literally, they don't have the same rights. He goes, we're done talking here. And I said, I just thought you wanted some, you know, input. I said, because I'm talking about you on social media and I'm calling your bill racist. And I wanted to say it to your face on the House floor because I don't like saying anything about somebody behind someone's back that I wouldn't say to their face.
That's it.
I look forward to doing the same to Cosby one day.
Like it or not.
Go ahead, Brother Mack.
So Representative, another thing is, in its quintessential form, all critical race theory is, as far as is in the simplistic form, is just to talk about the history of this country and how race played a part in it and what was the impact of it, right?
That's right.
And so the other thing that the opponents have to recognize is, how did they use, from a political science Charles Murray, the bell curve ideology? How did they use ideology of the lost cause in history, when the lost cause taught that the Civil War wasn't fought over slavery, slave owners were benevolent, we as the enslaved were happy to be about it, that the Confederacy, this was an honorable battle because they had to fight Northern aggression. And that ideology is throughout history books. Nobody ever had an issue with that. But now when it comes to an opportunity for them to say, look, the one thing that America has never done, and if you go on all the white television shows, and if there's a discussion about the issue of race, it is a very small discussion. And they say, well, I wish we had more time to do that. So
Exactly.
America has never wanted to get inside. Now they claim, and when I say they, I'm not talking about the white supremacists. I'm talking about the white liberals who also have this issue, and they're impeding the progress of having a serious dialogue about it. So, that's the other side that we need to challenge them on, is that you had no problem with the ideology of the lost cause being indoctrinated throughout history. You had no problem embracing Charles Murray's concept of the bell curve, where they literally talked about the relationship between race and intellect. So those are the other sides of it. But now that we want to talk about how race has affected every aspect of life in America for Black folks, no, we don't want to discuss that. So, and I'm so proud of you. And I so agree with you on the Cosby situation, because I can tell you, when my mother and father divorced, there was a man that she was involved with who was as much a father to me as many. And a lot of the ethics that I have around hard work, I learned from this man who was not my biological father. And when he and my mother separated, he still to this day, I call him my dad. So we had a lot of those inside of our community. But thank you so much, brother. And I love what you said. And for those who don't like it or not, Rep said it. Appreciate.
I want to bring Rep Rabb. I don't know how much more time you have with you, because there's a lot to this conversation. But the one day, so you have a few more minutes. You can say okay. So I want to bring in Councilwoman Tara Samples into the conversation. I want to particularly around critical race theory. Now, Councilwoman Samples, we brought you on to talk about the race in the 11th district, Nina Turner, and how that race is going. But obviously and it was serendipitous, because before I even reached out to you, or we did not know this, we were going to be discussing this morning with the backdrop of Jim Clyburn endorsing Nina's opponent. And I want to backdoor that conversation going through critical race theory. What are your thoughts on this just derangement that white conservatism has with regard to critical race theory, but then also the complicity of white liberals who I'm not sure that they actually want the truth told either.
Well, good morning for having me. And Representative Rabb, you are a truth teller, and you are one of my new best friends, just for that little segment. I think what we are now seeing here in our country is telling of a system that needs to be unrigged. We are now have been dealing with a system that is now living it out loud in front of America. And, we need truth tellers like Representative Rabb, like a Senator Nina Turner, who can really speak truth to what we are dealing with here in this country. And, there's so much here to unpack that has happened in the last 48 hours, not just here in this district, but across this country, as I listened to the comments and the segment on Mr. Cosby. And we've got some work to do. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And one of the things I appreciate about Nina Turner, and again, like I was on clickbaity political thirst trap. That's the our brother show this morning. And Marcus Farrow, he said it best. He was like, listen, there are all those candidates are dynamic. The opposition, they're dynamic, right? They're not Nina Turner, but they're Black women. They're dynamic, and so and we said it and we framed it that way because when Jill Clyburn came out to endorse Chantel Brown, the name is Chantel, right? When Jill Clyburn came out to endorse her, there is a strong backlash from white progressives, and I want to keep them at bay. Y'all stay over there for a second. But in terms of like the Black community, no one politician speaks for all of the Black community. There are going to be some people who look at that endorsement and say, great. And there are going to be a lot of people in the 11th district who probably don't even know who Jim Clyburn really is. I don't mean to throw you under the bus because we didn't plan on discussing this, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, you're not throwing me under the bus, but you're speaking truth. With all due respect, this is not South Carolina. It's just not. We're in a district that needs a Nina Turner in office, because we are dealing with some real hard issues here. We're dealing with homelessness. We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with gun violence that has taken over this district and this state that we've never seen in a very long time. And, endorsements are great. And we all have our set of endorsements, but it's the work that Senator Turner has done, not just in Cleveland and in Akron and in the district, but what she's done across this country. And because of the work that she has done, standing up for people, Black, brown, yellow, white, you name it, those people have come to her defense, because you very rarely find a humanitarian like Senator Turner. She is a modern day Shirley Chisholm, as we all know. And to watch individuals from outside come in to try to influence and flex their power in a district that is crying for someone to speak up for them, just based off of the last 24 hours of us being able to raise 6 figures based off of that endorsement, it speaks to who she is and the work that she has done.
So, Councilwoman, if you don't mind, it's hard for me to believe that an endorsement come from Clyburn without you all even soliciting the endorsement. And so what is his problem, if any, with Sister Turner?
I can't speak for the reasoning behind it. I think this is more about, unfortunately, Senator Sanders than it is about Nina Turner. And that's unfortunate. And that's the unfortunate part, because you have yourself a Black woman who has been drugged a lot by her own people for just wanting to do what's right. Always doing what's right. And I think that's the unfortunate part about here. It's fine that people go and get endorsements, but endorsements are great, but the work that she has done should have allowed all of them to sit on the sideline and say, you know what, let these Democrats, because there's 13 of them running, let them, fight it out in the primary. Right. And then, this is the problem I think we have within our party system is, when it's not the person that they want, this is what happens. And sometimes you have to, not sometimes, all the time, I think it's important for us to listen to the people. We need to support the candidate that the people want in these seats. And that doesn't happen.
And so, listen, I'm not going to pretend like I understand the politics in Ohio. So, and there's probably a lot of us that are listening in that don't know the politics in Ohio. So when you say she's been drugged through, can you give us just an example of her body of work that met opposition from our community?
Oh, I don't think we have enough time on this show, but we're talking about someone who has been out here doing the work. But I mean, if we go back some over 15 years when Stephanie Tubbs Jones, God rest her soul, passed away unexpectedly, Senator Turner was going to run for that seat. I mean, we had Black people who depicted her in a Call Post Black newspaper as Aunt Jemima. There was no need for it. But I mean, just because she wanted to be a voice in that space for us long ago, she didn't just wake up when this opening happened and say, I want to run for Congress. This is something that she has wanted to do for a long time. And even when she decided to support Senator Sanders, I mean, it was our people who was in opposition against her because she didn't fall in line to do what was told of her. Right. And she stood up for what was right. And she stood up and supported the person who was speaking to the issues and the needs of the people in this country.
And can I just throw something real quick?
Yeah, please. I was just going to come to you.
There's also a real kind of problematic undertone to how we talk about the sister, because some people think that she is just somehow a pawn or puppet of Bernie Sanders, which is deeply disrespectful. And I got to tell you a personal story. I was being recruited as a progressive Black elected in Pennsylvania, of which there are too few. And the Sanders campaign was coming at me hard, trying to get me to endorse. And long story short, There was a racist exchange. One of Sanders' people, highly racist, foul, from someone high up in his campaign. It got back to Nina Turner, and she called me and said, "This is unacceptable. This needs to be addressed immediately. I'm blowing this up. This is unacceptable." She didn't have to do that, but she did. I didn't ask her to do anything, and I didn't tell her. She stepped up because that's the type of sister that she is. People like to think that because she is a strong advocate for Senator Sanders, that she does not have her own opinions, her own values, her own work ethic, etc. And that's not true. And that happens a lot to Black folk.
Especially
it happens,
Black women.
Yes.
especially Black women, especially. Now listen, I'm not here to make any friends, especially when you turn on, when you see, when Nina Turner, I believe, I don't know if it was an official endorsement, but back in 2015 in the primaries, she initially supported Hillary Clinton, very briefly. And then she did go with Bernie Sanders. And when she got with Bernie Sanders, she hit the ground running because there was a symbiotic relationship between her prophetic fire and what Sanders was saying in terms of economic justice. But it was the fact that she had the nerve to not do what the Clintons said that led to, in 2016 in Philadelphia, Rabb, we didn't know each other then, but I'm sure we were both in the same city. In 2016, they canceled her. They refused to allow her to speak at the DNC. She was on stage getting ready to go out, and they refused to let her, after Bernie Sanders could speak. The actual candidate who opposed Hillary Clinton to the end of the world and back again was allowed to speak, but not Nina Turner. And that's because she's a Black woman who had a nerve to speak truth to power, even to the Clinton machine.
You said it. You said it. You said it all right there. I was in Philadelphia with Senator Turner at that very moment when that happened, and that was one of the hardest moments to ever experience with your friend, someone who's just been out here fighting for people, to be denied the right just seconds before she was supposed to go on, to be told that she couldn't go on because she hadn't endorsed someone. And the unfortunate part is to have other Black women sign on to that against her. And I think that's what we have to deal with here in our country and in our spaces, is that it's okay for us to stand up for one another. It's okay for us to stand up beside one another and support. And when we doing wrong, tell each other we doing wrong. But I mean, we have to start standing up for what's right and not just falling in line. And for goodness sake, standing up for one another. And it's long overdue. As a Black woman in this space, I've experienced it time and time again. A lot of times our biggest adversaries be our own people. But now we have somebody there that really will speak truth to power for us and do the things that we have constantly been promised by politicians that never happen. And I think that's where the biggest fear is. We have someone that is going to go there and actually keep a promise, promise keeper.
So Councilwoman Samples and Rep. Rabb, this is where the parallel is coming to me, and maybe I'm seeing this wrong, but help me with this. In the Republican Party, we find it absolutely insanity that the Sister Cheney could come up and say, Trump is lying about stealing the election, and then watch the Republican Party turn on her. I see the same thing. What I'm listening to you all tell me is that same thing happening. And we as Democrats, or folks who are partial to the Democratic Party, thought that what the Republicans was doing was just asinine. And now, is that what we're talking about is happening with Sister Turner?
Brother Mack, you said it. You said all that I don't need to say. That's exactly what we're
experiencing.
experiencing.
Like that's what we do here.
I would agree. Georgia, I want you to get in on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, what it makes me think of is how we need to normalize the truth, unfortunately, right? And we need to normalize people who are speaking up and standing for truth so much that they don't have to pay a political price on the back end, or compromise any of their social capital on the back end, just for simply standing in place and speaking truth. And so as I hear you talk about the price that Nina Turner has had to pay to just simply speak truth and fight for what's right, this is a simple question, but hopefully it goes a long way. Like, how can we support Nina Turner, especially those who are not in her district? What is it that she needs in this moment where she's at with her campaign?
Absolutely. Well, she definitely needs money for the mission. As you all have probably seen the headlines, is there's some awkward group that's come in and put 6 figures into an anti-anybody but Nina campaign. But being able to reach out into this district, I mean, we have text apps that can text people speaking about her in a positive light on a Benjamin Dixon type of show. So individuals know that we have ourselves a people's champion who is running for Congress in the 11th Congressional District. We do not have a puppet here. Yeah. We have someone who is going to do right all the time by the people. So, money for the mission at ninaturner.com, very important right now. We early voting is getting ready to start on July the 7th. And it is important that people exercise their rights to vote, because we can complain all day about what is not being done in our communities. But if we do not show up to vote, all we're doing is complaining.
Yeah. And Sister Ford, I so appreciate that question you asked, and Councilwoman Samples, I appreciate the answer. So because of that issue of us simply complaining and not doing it, Sister Ford, you asked the question. So Councilwoman, I'm saying to you right now, tell me what is the maximum amount? And I ain't really got it like that, but you tell me what is the maximum amount that I can contribute to Sister Turner's campaign. And I'm saying to you right now in front of God and everybody that's coming to you today, what is the maximum amount?
Listen, Brother Mack, you look like someone who got $2,600.
So it was said.
You look like
so let it be written. So we're going to take it. Listen,
I'm saying to you right now, I ain't saying I got it like that, but if you telling me it's $2,600, I'm saying to you, just in the spirit of her last name, because she reminded me of Nat Turner with her spirit. So I am contributing $2,600 to her campaign.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I appreciate what you all are doing. And Sister Ford, thank you so much for teeing that up for us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish the conversation about Bill Cosby and the conversation about Phylicia Rashad, because y'all do what y'all want to with Bill, but y'all going to leave Phylicia alone. We're going to talk about that. Councilwoman Tara Samples, also one of the senior advisors for Nina Turner's 11th Congressional District run. Thank you so much for joining us. And Representative Rabb, now, if either of you have more time to spare, I would love to talk with you more, but I do want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, more on the Cosby story after this.
Right.
Good morning again, everyone. Man, there's some good conversation over here, boy. We are back, but before we get to everything, we want to make sure that we shout out everybody, our new patrons that have joined. So I'm going to go through this list real quick, y'all. And hey, I need y'all. I really need y'all to go to patreon.com/liking-or-not, patreon.com/liking-or-not. Y'all go ahead and get your Patreon on. You get to be part of the after party. You get to do the what else, David, am I trying to say? The patron parties that are on on Fridays. As a matter of fact, patron party tomorrow night. Make sure that you have your face in the place. You don't want to miss it, y'all. Patreon.com/liking-or-not, patreon.com/like-it-or-not. Shout out to Timothy B, new patron. New Twitch subscribers, we have Brown Coat Blue, who resubscribed with Prime and commented. Let's go! They've been subscribed for 3 months. The One Winged Dragon resubscribed and commented on our subscriber only line emotes. Yes, on Twitch we have subscriber only line emotes, and they are dope as hell. And they've been subscribed for 3 months. Moose Soup resubscribed and commented, cops are bad, okay, cops are bad, okay, and they've been subscribed for 3 months as well. The Chicken Fried Dragon resubscribed and commented, good morning. They have been subscribed for 3 months. Murderino Dragon resubscribed and commented, wee woo, just signed up for the next 6 months with y'all. Wee woo, my .com just crashed. Love you. I love y'all, man. Y'all are animated. I'm reading how I feel that y'all read it, okay? And then we have Mimosa Dragon, who gifted 5 subscriptions, and also Moose Soup gifted 1 subscription to Fun Sweet. Shout out to everybody, man. Love y'all. Appreciate it. Man, y'all are like the family, okay? Make sure you go to patreon.com/likeitOrNot. Patreon.com/likeitOrNot. Join. We got a party tomorrow. Don't want to miss it. Be there. Be square, y'all. Let's get to this music. Let's go. And wait a minute. I got to pause the music and give a big birthday shout out to our brother Lateef. Brother Lateef Mims, happy birthday, brother, to you, man. Hope you enjoy your day. Turn up, bro. It's your birthday.
Now, sometimes they hurt. I stay high when bullets fly.
So if you in the chat, make sure. David, really? David said he could have removed the wee woo, but he wanted me to hear it. He wanted to hear it. David, you're a jerk, okay? Thanks, David. Love you. Morning again to everyone in the chat rooms, wherever you are streaming from, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, family. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Mama. I saw you in the chat room earlier. Good morning, Papa. Love y'all, all right? Okay, now I gotta learn the song because that note just took me there. Shout out to Justice. Justice, I see you down there, Justice. Good morning. Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet, and it feels so good inside. Don't need anybody, I just need the beat. I just need the feel. All right, y'all. Don't make sure that y'all don't break anything in your house, okay? I will take you there, but I'm trying not to. I'm done with the hurt inside. Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet, and it feels so good inside. And I always want Roller Dragon, good morning. I close my eyes and all my troubles fade away. Your words once got so deep into me, but tonight I won't let that. Shout out to brother Marcus in the chat. Marcus, good morning, brother. Good morning. What's going on? Marcus, I know. Just wait till I get the new costume.
We should still have fun, though we say we're done. 'Cause I just wanna get done with you. For the last time, I can call you mine. Once more, then I swear we are through. We should still have fun, though we say we're done. 'Cause I just wanna get done with you. For the last time, I can call you mine. Once more, then I swear we are through.
Michael 147, thank you for your super chat. Because Tiger Cat Sunday cannot. I appreciate y'all. All right, y'all. It is time for more Like It or Not. The conversation is about to get more in-depth and detailed. So welcome back to the screen, everybody, y'all. Like It or Not, y'all.
Hey, welcome back. Can you guys? I just feel like I can't hear myself good, but it could just be me. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Let's dig down into this conversation a little bit more about. And before we make that pivot, I want to say one last thing about Sister Turner, and really about that entire conversation, because we're in a situation here in this country where, you know, there are people, and you can keep everybody on the screen. I'm not gonna be long at all here. It is difficult to be black and be free in this country. It is so difficult because. Do y'all know what it has to be like to have the entire weight of the political democratic institution come down against you? Rabb sounds like you do. You know, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, that hit kind of close, brother. Yes, right.
That's nothing to sneeze. Like, listen, I've had the entirety of Twitter left come after me, and that was enough for me to block 5,000 people. So what do you think? People at the highest level of this political conversation, which Nina Turner is, she's at the highest level of this political conversation in the political discourse in this country, and to be targeted by the entire infrastructure of the Democratic Party. And I don't care what color they are, black, white, whatever. The point is that you know, let's pray for our sister, because she's got a lot going on. A lot of people coming after her,
and the deafening silence too. Right? If you put yourself out there and you hear crickets from the people who you would hope got you, I mean, that deafening silence is almost as bad as the screams. And we have to consider both sides. When I posted something about Palestine, and I've been in office for 5 years. So I was elected the same night as what's his name in 2016. So if you put all of the hate mail I got in my first 4 years and you compare it to the last 4 weeks after I posted about Palestine on my Facebook page, it just blew it out of the water, because you know, they have a troll army for anything that appears to be or is Israel.
Oh, okay.
They have a whole network. And they will employ not just Israeli citizens or folks who have dual citizenship. They will also employ white evangelical racists who believe it's the Holy Land just minus the Jews, right? So, you know, and they came after me hard. I had to actually file charges against somebody. The level of hatred and threats just in that one singular post was more than everything I'd ever said or done or in response to it. And I did not have that's one of the third rails. You cannot talk about Zionism. You cannot do it.
And when you feel the weight of Sister Turner, where I don't want to overplay it, but can I just say, like, as a person, as anybody, matter of fact, we can go around the screen. We can go around the screen and each of us talk about the situations in our life where we have been the most exposed, and we are attacked from every single angle. I'm not trying to make a martyr out of Sister Turner, but I know these circles. These are some vicious people around these streets. You know, this is no play thing. When they come after you, they come after your livelihood. They come after your livelihood and try to make it so that you can't work again. They come after your reputation so that you don't have the very thing that you built on and you stood on. And they come after, they come after everything that they possibly can, and they even come through our own community. I didn't want to belabor that point too long, but I mean, I don't know if anybody else has anything to say about that. I just wanted to make sure that we put that fine point on the conversation, because I kind of have a 1% understanding of what it is to be flying at a certain elevation and have everybody coming after to attack you. And then, like you said, Representative Rabb, some of the people you thought would defend you are now standing down. So
to the point that Rabb just discussed his own experience of speaking, what they perceive to be speaking against Israel. We just watched another brother, Mark Hill, experience that same thing with CNN. And so, and my personal example of it is that when I was president of Seattle King County NAACP, there was a state attorney general by the name of Christine Gregoire, who was running for governor. And the headlines in the largest paper in Seattle, the Seattle Times, talked about the racial dilemma of Gregoire, that when she was in college, she joined this all-white sorority that clearly had a policy of keeping blacks out. And so we spoke against that. And not only did we speak against it from that standpoint, but the other reason we spoke against it is because when we invited her to our community to talk about what she was going to do to support our community, in light of the fact that the only African-American owned nursing home in the state, she led efforts to close it down. So we spoke against her. And because I was still employed, as an engineer with Seattle King County, and my work within the framework of the NAACP was completely volunteer, all of a sudden she started contacting HR to find out how is it that I'm able to be at a press conference when technically I should have been at work. And so I told the King County, when she comes after me, you better inform me of what that looks like, because I was a non-exempt employee, and every time card, whenever I had to leave to go do the work of our community, I would put down 3 hours or 4.5 hours, however many hours I worked. But being a non-exempt employee, you had to take the whole 8 hours if you were there. So if she wanted to bring that fight to me, please bring it on. So you clearly understand that situation when the world turns against you. But I will say this, I can't say that the world turned against me. Because of the work that we did in that community, as with Sister Turner, the Black community was like, you can come after some of them, but you come after Brother Mack and just know you got to get through us to get to him. And I certainly appreciated that love and support.
Yeah, that's awesome. Georgia.
Yeah, it makes me think of Ilhan Omar and the way that she was attacked and ridiculed by Trump when he was in office. And for me, as a journalist, is very different than, the rhetoric that happens in the political realm. But I would say, as a journalist, you're also advocating for truth, amplifying truth, being an independent journalist and not citing the same sources as mainstream media. There's controversy there. And so for me, I think the experience I had was working in mainstream media, doing the story on the chief of police and his family's connection to a lynching, and then being fired 2 weeks later, but on paper saying it was for something else. And not one colleague spoke up. My immediate supervisor did not advocate for me. The HR rep in the company did not advocate for me. It was a direct attack by the general manager. And, that was hurtful. A few years later, I went back into that community to cover the 100-year anniversary of those lynchings, and was doing so for a different outlet. And it was very eerie. This white guy pulls up as I'm doing my stand-up. He gets out of his car and he just starts taking pictures of me. And he didn't say anything. He didn't say hi. He just starts taking my photo. And so having worked with other individuals who have been doxxed by white supremacists, having, your personal address published on the internet, and having, threats that people are going to show up to your house and harm you, especially when you have a family. For me, it's not been so much of my livelihood that has been a concern as much as it has been my family's safety in doing this work. And so when you're speaking up for truth and you're speaking against systems, right, there is a price that you pay for that. And whether that is your your livelihood, your social capital, reputation, or your safety. Trust me, Ben, I have well over 1,000 people on my block list as well.
Yeah, yeah. James, it get like that, man. It,
Right.
it gets to the point where you're out here by yourself, and maybe the world didn't turn against you, but I mean, I'm listening to everybody's stories. James, I want you to get in there and just, because what it also reminds me of, as you get in there, it also reminds me of how now they're trying to cancel Felicia Rashad.
Yeah.
When they come for black folks, they come for keeps.
Yeah, they do. My situation is different, political wise, no, but personally, yes. Once I was married, my husband and I were might as well say a power couple. We were Beyonce and Jay-Z of the gay world. Okay. So once we separated, it's like the world came down to me. It's like the narrative was shared from one side, and my side didn't matter. So the people that I thought were my friends or who I thought had my back and would stay with me to the end, they didn't. So it was a long, hard battle. It's something that I had to pull myself out of myself and depend on just me. Now you had those friends that stuck around, but before that, it was just me. It was one side of the story. Everybody else cut me off. Didn't know what was going on. It was just in the dark. So I had to pull myself out of it. So like I said, it sucks, but it makes you a better, stronger person. And then it gives you something to fight for.
Why is it that when we as people, and James, what I'm hearing and what you're saying is like you brought it to a level of analysis that we see this phenomenon in our personal lives as well as our professional lives.
Yeah.
Like this happens to us professionally as well as personally. Why is it that when they come for us, like people don't like to show the same mercy that they're going to need on their side of the journey?
Oh,
right?
absolutely not.
They don't. And then they use a certain level of cruelty in this political world, that there's an assumption of power. There's an assumption that we can't do nothing back to them, but they can do whatever they want to us. Because when we're speaking of Nina Turner, this is the Democratic establishment saying, well, we could get rid of you and you can't do nothing to us. And when you look at this Felicia Rashad, we have a clip from Felicia Rashad. And I don't want to play the clip because I really want us to have that conversation. And we have a statement from Howard University. They're really trying to cancel Felicia Rashad. And not today, Satan. Nah, run the clip of Felicia Rashad. I don't know what she says in this clip is good or bad, but y'all not gonna cancel it. Let's play it.
More than a dozen women of sexual assault and impropriety.
What has happened is declaration in the media of guilt without proof.
Earlier this week, her remarks about the women who have come forward created a firestorm.
You were quoted online as saying, forget those women.
And that was a misquote. And that is not what I said. What I said is this is not about the women. This is about something else. This is about the obliteration of legacy.
Because some people might think that it was dismissive.
I am a woman. I am a woman. I would never say such a thing.
But she's under attack today as 3 more women step forward with new accusations against Cosby.
When you first heard women were saying they had been drugged or raped.
I had never heard that before. And I can't even speak to those things and don't want to.
Rashad insisting this scandal is an orchestrated attack.
Who would have a vested interest in attacking the legacy of Bill Cosby?
That's my question too.
A lot of that clip, that clip was an emotional roller coaster for me, because and it was early on in the investigation as more women started to come out. I hear what she's saying in terms of legacy, but Cliff should have thought about his legacy too. I mean, let's just keep it. I mean, I'm just gonna keep it what Cliff should have thought about his Bill Cosby should have thought about his legacy too, as he was doing the things that he did. She didn't get it right. I think the first tweet. Do we have the first tweet that she sent out yesterday? Because this is what they want to cancel her over. If we have that tweet, I want to bring it up because she was saying, finally, a terrible wrong has been righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. And she had a subsequent tweet that went out after that. And this is what she said. I fully support survivors of sexual assault coming forward. My post was in no way intended to be insensitive to their truth. Personally, I know from friends and family that such abuse has lifelong residual effects. My heartfelt wish is for healing. I want to ask everybody on the screen this question. I'm going to make an excuse for Claire Huxtable, and you guys could tell me if that floats or not. I think she's here litigating publicly something that she has very nuanced, vested interest in knowing every detail about. She understood the fact that he had a plea deal and that she had all that nuance, and she went out there and sent that first tweet, and then she realized, oh boy, yeah, I kicked over the hornet's nest. And then she had to send out that correction tweet. That's my measure of what has happened. Am I missing something, or do you see it another way? Anyone who wants to jump in first?
All right, I'll jump in. I am displeased. And I don't know, and I want to be respectful of all the folks who have are survivors of sexual predation. I don't know if she's suffering from survivor's guilt, maybe not having been a victim herself. Let me give you an example. I work with sexual predators. I work with them. I know who some of them are. I know some of the folks who've retired have been pushed out. I know them, and it sickens me. And I've been one of the few Democrats who've asked for fellow Democrats to leave office. And it did not make me many friends, but I don't like sexual predators. Is that a controversial statement? I don't think so. But I could say those sexual predators who I work with or used to work with, well, they were okay to me. They didn't say anything misogynistic or rapey or anything like that. So they're okay. I can't do that. I can't do that in good faith. And this is so much bigger than one's individual working relationship with someone or their personal connection. This is systemic, and he is symbolic of something that's much bigger than him. He did not invent sexual predation. I am a living embodiment of sexual predation, because the reason why I do is because of institutional rape. I don't have any consensual relationships between black and white in my family after the Civil War. Right. So even though I'm a cisgender hetero man, I process this from a legacy perspective, from an entirely different way. And we have to, if what the miscarriage of justice could have been is the incompetence shown by the original DA, which is why this got to the state Supreme Court, right? In my state, it was gross incompetence. They messed up. But none of this has anything to do about whether or not he did it, because he admitted it, which is part of the crux of this, is because he thought he could be honest and say he did it and still get off, because he's a wealthy man who embraces capitalism. And he has been protected by this his whole professional life. And that is deeply, deeply problematic. And I think that is the bigger issue that we need to discuss, not specifically around Felicia Rashad. And it's also interesting and a little ironic. We have historically black colleges and universities, and I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for my ancestors who graduated and who contributed to these institutions. But a lot of them are run by very conservative folks with problematic
politics.
Priorities. Problematic priorities, and problematic connections to the very corporations that we talk about and are part of the political industrial complex that push against folks like Nina Turner. It's ironic that they're pushing Felicia Rashad when I thought they would actually go the other way, because generally speaking, they tend to err on the side of conservatism that promotes kind of heteronormativity, patriarchy, and other things. but cuts out certain areas where we can all agree. And we have to look at ourselves in terms of how do we hold our Black institutions to account and make sure that lovingly and meaningfully we make them better. And I think this is an opportunity to have that discussion.
Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've raised some very valid points, and even going very, very deep and talking about the history of non-consensual sex in this country and how that has plagued the Black community since the inception of this country. And so, when you really look at sexual predators and the culture of that and how it's been cultivated in America, and not just, like, you could even go into music, entertainment. And when you look at Cosby having so much success in Hollywood, he was not the only person who was using his star power, so to say, to leverage sexual situations with women. And he took that even a step further. We were just looking at a clip there of when he was on with Larry King, and they were joking about it. It makes me think of there was a song Rick Ross made where he was joking about rape. And so it is a very nasty part of our culture in America that disregards in some degree, women having consent over their bodies. So it is a much larger issue. And I think that, almost to a fault, you have Rashad being, kind of this ride or die colleague for Cosby. And unfortunately, she may pay a price for what she said, for standing by him. And I could also see why it would be difficult for her to acknowledge the truth in all of these women coming forward if she never had that experience. It could be very hard for her to accept that if she never had those experiences with him. In addition to that, understand that Cosby's legacy is very much so her legacy.
Yeah.
And I cannot help but continue to think of how we got here, how we got to this place of this deep skepticism of whether or not he did or didn't do what he's accused of doing. And I think largely we have to remember the timing of when these accusations came out. And we heard her say this too in the interview, where she said, why would people be, it feels orchestrated. Why would people be doing this? That level of skepticism is there because historically, when you do have Black men who are walking out a large, iconic legacy, they're attacked. We've seen this happen time and time and time again. And these attacks came out at a time when he was in negotiation to buy a network. And so it did feel orchestrated, and not to diminish, because like we said, the evidence is there. He's admitted to it. 60 women coming forward. And, if any of them are listening, I want to say that I'm sorry for your experience. You did not deserve that.
Right.
And so how can we move to a place of being preventative? Right? Because we could sit here and defend Rashad and say she deserves to be in the position, or cancel her and she should be removed. But the larger question is not just one person's career and what the fate of it is in regards to this situation. The larger question I think that needs to come out of this is, how do we change our culture, and how do we prevent another man leveraging his star power and using that in a way, and even thinking of what was he a director, the big movie director?
Epstein.
I mean,
not Epstein.
Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, Harvey.
Yeah.
So we've seen this. This is not a new situation. How do we normalize calling out abuse when we see it, and how do we move to a place of putting some preventative measures in place so that more in the future we don't have more victims?
Brother Mack.
I think Representative Rabb said it accurately. Her comments, she got that wrong. She absolutely got it wrong. And to Sister Ford, to answer the question of how do we stop this, you hold people accountable. You just absolutely hold them accountable. And again, the insensitivity that I'm feeling right now, because all I'm trying to imagine is that one of those women were personal to me. My sister, my daughter, my mother, they were personal to me. Now, they don't have to be personal for me to be empathetic for what they went through. They don't have to be. And to that point, it is a zero-sum game. You know, if we're not going to tolerate it, you don't tolerate it. And the way that you do that, celebrity, your legacy, all of those things, whatever it is you've done in the past, because this is what I've always understood. You can take the largest edifice in the country, any great building that it took them years and years to build. But when they put those charges on there with just a simple push of a button, it all comes crumbling down. And when you talk about him putting himself in this position, again, I remember looking at the footage of Hugh Hefner. And I'm wondering, how is America's dad hanging out at the Playboy's mansion? How is that happening? You know? And again, when the question was asked, when you showed the B-roll footage, and he clearly says, no, I'm not going to answer that question. So you don't want to answer a question of where your penis has been, but you can make a statement about the condition of every single black mom in America, which you don't know. You know where you've been, you know. So, you know, it's, you know, there's no doubt, as the representative said, she got that wrong. She got that wrong. And how do we stop this? I don't care who you are. You hold them accountable. Trump never should have been president. Never should have been president based on what he did. Clinton should have been impeached and thrown out of office.
Come on.
You know, Cosby needs to be held accountable. Weinstein out, you know, and all the other folks that did it, R. Kelly, if you was messing around with underage girls, you need to be where you are. You know, let's just call it the way it is.
Yes, sir.
Like it or not.
James.
You know, and I agree. There needs to be accountability, but let's also bring this accountability on the justice system for allowing this to happen. Because if they would have did their job the first time, this technicality would have never happened. We wouldn't be here at this point right now. It makes absolutely no sense, you know. And like I said, not sticking up for anything that Bill Cosby did, Harvey Weinstein, any of them. It's just this damn technicality. That's what it is. Look at the bigger picture. Is the justice system messed this up? Because it makes no sense that this man was allowed to have a deal and you had 60 women that came out. Simple as that.
So
now, granted.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, granted, Felicia Rashad's comments, I think her initial interview when she made that, she didn't have all the information. She really didn't. So her initial statement now of that miscarriage of justice, okay, I see that part. And I see what she's saying on that. And honestly, I don't think she was trying to take away from the victims, but saying that the miscarriage of justice, yeah, he made a deal, honor it. And now here it is. Like I said, should have never been able to make a deal in the first place for this to even happen.
That's
because honestly, he needs to be put under the jail. Okay.
Let me say this. Let me say this about the technicality from a black perspective of us in the black community. You know, if it's one quote that we love by Brother Malcolm, by any means necessary. Well, the means that first prosecutor did, he got the truth out. Now, the fact that in that deposition, he asked a pointed question, did you purchase Quaaludes for the purpose of having sex with women? And he said yes. And supposedly those records were supposed to be sealed as part of the agreement. Well, one could have easily said all he had to do was go back to the 1991 clip of Cosby saying the exact same thing on Larry King, and he didn't have to make the deal. But in the spirit of by any means necessary, whatever the means was that happened, the truth came out. And that truth, if we could use by any means necessary for the good of us, then we ought to be able to use by any means necessary for the good of these sisters who were wrong. Like it or not.
Yeah.
I understand.
Represent. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
Oh no, that was it.
I do want to point, and then Representative Rabb, I want to come to you because I want to play a clip of the attorney, the prosecutor at the time, Bruce Castor. Bruce Castor is the impeachment attorney, the second impeachment, the attorney for the second impeachment of Donald Trump. Now, we're going to play a clip of him rambling at the impeachment trial of Donald Trump. And if anyone's questioning how such an egregious deal could be made, and how it could be fumbled at this point, and the miscarriage of justice for the women, right? If there's any miscarriage of justice, it's for the women. Bruce Castor is why, and listen to him as he defends the president of the United States at his second impeachment hearing trial. Let's take a look.
My name is Bruce Castor. I am the lead prosecutor, or lead counsel for the 45th President of the United States. But I do understand the difference, Mr. Reskin. Manslaughter and murder. You could grow up to be a United States Senator. Congress shall make no law abridging all of these things, that they be convicted first. Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. Nixon to Ford, Ford to Carter, Carter to Reagan, Bush 41 to Clinton. That happens. I worked in this building 40 years ago. I got lost then, and I still do.
I don't mean, it's not a laughing matter, but this is, if you want to, incompetence abounds in this system. And at the top of the show, I asked a question. And I would like Representative Rabb, if you could help us tie this together, because I thank you for staying this long with us. And I know you've got a lot of stuff to do. But I think as Black people, I think one of the number one things that we have to be cognizant of, you could take this guy down, Castor down. We can't let, if we know this system was built to oppress us, how do we think we can get away operating in this system the way the system, first of all, like, if you want to bring it into Bill Cosby, why the hell would Bill Cosby have this expectation, and you've already answered it, that he could get away with this? And that's because he's operating just like this capitalist system says that you can operate as a man in this system. And he forgot that he was a Black man. And then he also forgot that he was a human being. But Representative Rabb, your thoughts on him not changing the system, but just going right along with the way it was with every other producer.
You know, what you just spotlighted is highly controversial, because you are spotlighting and amplifying, not in a good way, but you are showing your audience aggressive white mediocrity at play, which is the norm, which is how white society has called excellence. And it's a paper tiger. The fact that Bruce Castor could be on that platform in light of his aggressive mediocrity would not exist if he were not a white man. That is the standard. And there is a default. And my grandfather used to say this about self-hating Negroes, which was, the white man's ice is colder. He did not care for self-hating Negroes. And he would tell me stories all the time. And that is the default in terms of the expectations of the rigor of white folk, white men in particular. And when we say we have to work, we've all heard this growing up. If you got a Black mama who said you got to work twice as hard just to keep up, that's an understatement. But that is not to keep up with excellence. That's to keep up with white folk. Right? And that's not the same thing, because no one understands what a meritocracy or a competitiveness is if white folk have, even to the present, have not allowed for a level playing field. It was only recently where they let women into most of these institutions, fairly recently, right? It's only recent that we have folks of different backgrounds who are at the table, and not necessarily, at the head of the table, but just showing up. So we don't actually know what a meritocracy looks like, because it has been consciously and consistently narrowed to a very small group of folks. And in Pennsylvania, slavery was the state law until 1780, and 75 years later, the last Black person was emancipated. This is the norm. And going back to Cosby, push a little bit on this kind of reductionist perspective of how the white man tries to bring black folk down when we're at our zenith. Cosby had been at his apex for some time. He wasn't new to wealth. The reason there's a difference between causation and correlation. There's a strong correlation between him wanting to buy up a network and beating out other white men who wanted it, as much, and that causing his downfall. The correlation is that as long as he's making a lot of money for white folk, he's good. Stay, sell the posts, right? You're good. Talk about poor black folk and single moms. Good. We're all good, right? But it's not that all white folk conspired against him. If there were all kinds of men and women, black and white, who knew his misdeeds for decades and the misdeeds of all of his running buddies for decades. It only takes one disgruntled person who wanted that NBC deal and said, I don't want that so-and-so to get it, who leaked something that he should have leaked long before, but they were indicted in it because those folks were going to the same parties. So this is not about him being black. This is not about him speaking truth to power because he didn't do a whole lot of that. This is about patriarchy fueled capitalism that says, we will reward you as long as you feed the beast. And if we don't indict the beast, if we don't fight back, we are complicit. And it's not easy. I'm not saying we can live off the grid and have some kind of socialist utopia. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we just like the folks who don't want us to talk about critical race theory. There's a lot of us who don't want to talk about how we don't do enough critical analysis of the institutions that we may temporarily benefit from because it helps our kind of creature comfort in the moment, but degrade the quality of life for black folk collectively. That's a conversation that's going to be a hard one. It's going to listen. I grew up in a black liberal bourgeois family in Chicago in the 70s and 80s. My hands are not clean. I can't say there's no pure test here. We all have our issues, but we have to have these difficult conversations within our own communities. It's so easy to say this is wrong with all of y'all, but to have the real courage of our conviction to say this is what we need to heal from. We have to acknowledge our own wounds and understand their origins so that we can be stronger. Because I tell my sons who are teenagers now, I said, look, the reason I am vulnerable and do so publicly is not because I'm an extrovert. I want people to know all my businesses, because I need to set an example to let folks know that I am imperfect, that I have wounds and I seek to heal. And that's why I go to therapy. That's why I speak out and want to be stronger. And you can't be stronger if you don't heal, and you can't heal if you don't understand what wounds have been inflicted upon you and what wounds we inflict upon ourselves. And this is the conversation. It is so much bigger than Cosby. It is so much bigger than the judicial system and the carceral state, because my reaction is I want to see him in an alley with none of his people around. And that's a very hetero male response. I
get it.
It's problematic. And I struggle with that because I want to beat him down. That's not the solution. It also centers me over what's best for the women who are victimized. Right. It should be them who are centered. But more importantly, what real justice looks like is when this man acknowledges, when he takes account of his actions publicly and then gives all of his wealth to all the things to eradicate what he put up. That's what it looked like. It's not about putting him under the jail, because Brother James, that's what I thought. That's my first impression because of how I've been trained, but that's not the morally appropriate and constructive thing. We don't need to build more prisons and put the bad guys in them. We need to transform and use people like him as an example. And he may not ever get to that point. So I'm not an idealist in that sense. Right. That may never happen. But we need to show the world what justice looks like. And that justice is a restorative element that includes him saying, the reason I have been a predator is X, Y, and Z. Here is why I did it. Here's why I'm wrong. Here's how I was part of the problem. And here's what I'm going to do to be part of the solution. That's what I want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. James or Professor Mack.
Rabb said it. This is for me personally, this is one of the most difficult conversations that I've ever had publicly. I don't take it lightly. It needs to be had. And Brother Dixon, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of DJ. I'm proud of Rabb. I'm proud of Sister Fort, Councilwoman Samples. I'm proud of all of the folks that may be tuning in on this to listen to it and try to work our way through it. You know, it's not that we're trying to, you know, some people are going to want to simplify this. You know, here go brothers, you know, here these bourgeois black folks beating down on somebody. No, it's not that. Right. You know, if we want to make this better, then we got to hold our folks accountable as well. We have to understand that the hurt that was caused by these sisters, and we cannot marginalize them or forget them. Right. The topic of the conversation is going to be technicality. No, that ain't what burns in my soul right now. The topic of this is how these women have to have been feeling, because the one thing that my mama always taught me when it comes to sex, Carl, no means no. I don't care how you try to persuade a woman. Spanish fly, quaaludes. That sister wasn't fully cognizant when this so-called consensual sex, that did not happen by his own admission. And so that is what sits at the paramount of my feelings about this very difficult conversation to have.
James.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I can't say anything else after that. You know, it is a very difficult conversation because it hits very, very close to home. Without going into detail with anything, that's all I can say. It hits very, very close to home. And just knowing that, you know, on the flip side of it, to be honest, just seeing that he's able to walk free, yeah, it sucks. Because now this makes it seem like any other rapist out there can just get off on the technicality if they find one little thing wrong and be able to just walk the hell out of jail. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that at all.
And Brother Ben, let me just put this last point in, because somebody said they referenced his age in one of the conversations I had. And one of the things I said to him, if that be's your logic, then how could we say we're due reparations when slavery ended in 1865 and we're talking about it today? That logic just doesn't weigh. A crime against humanity, a crime against somebody has to be met with accountability. I don't care if it's your last day on earth.
Absolutely.
It needs to be met.
I love it. Representative Chris Rabb, Pennsylvania's 200th Congressional District. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. Brother Carl Mack.
Y'all are awesome. All of y'all are awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Meeting you, man, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, man. So insightful.
Likewise.
I don't think there's much more to be said about Cosby. I think we have said it, and there's still so much more. Georgia referenced the conversations that we need to have in the Black community. Not because those conversations don't need to be had in the white community, but because we have, as Black people, we got to operate differently in America. And the different is we got to walk with integrity. We got to do what's right. We got to call a thing, even if they're your favorite artist. Even if you were a former Cosby scholar and you received, even if he was your America's dad, you got to call a thing. And the technicality, whatever the case may be with Bill Cosby, I think the greater conversation is, how do we as Black people operate in this country?
Yeah.
How do we operate? Do we try to operate and mirror what is already here? Or do we go in and change? Is America changing us, or are we changing America? That's what Dr. King was talking about when he was talking about assimilating us into a burning house. Because if we're being assimilated into a burning house, the real question is, are we changing that fire, or is that fire burning us? Are we allowing what America is to corrupt us? Or are we going to speak truth to power, even when it's an inconvenient truth for us? That's all I got for today. DJ exclusive. It's your world, man.
Yes, sir. Love y'all. Mean it. We'll see y'all tomorrow Representative Rabb, we thank you, sir. Brother Carl Mack, it's always a pleasure.
Like it or not.
We'll see y'all in the morning. All right, y'all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, man, deep combo today. Awesome show, man. We greatly appreciate y'all for everything, man. Y'all are just great audience, great comments, everything in the chat. So greatly appreciate y'all. Make sure patreon.com/likeItOrNot, patreon.com/likeItOrNot. Patron party is going down tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you have your face in the place, y'all. And real quick, before I leave, want to get some of these comments read real fast. Boom. J.N. Lee, Felicia Rashad aside, what about Camille? Why aren't we talking about her standing by Cosby? Why wouldn't she be considered an enabler in a way? That's deep. And then Siscat, I wish more white people would get up and watch the show every morning. I'm on the West Coast. I set an alarm at 5:30 a.m. just to be here. It's so important. Shout out to you, Siscat. We appreciate y'all. And let's see, I had a couple of super chats to get off real quick before I get out of here. Rabb 1984, thank you for your super chat. Facts 100. And my brother Infinite Content said, oh, Rabb 1984 again, under the jail, but so true. If you do crime, you need to do time. Infinite Content, of course I can't get back to your super chat because it won't let me. Anyway, I got you next time, sir. Y'all enjoy yourselves. We will see y'all tomorrow. Love y'all, mean it. Great show again. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, y'all. Like It or Not show. Deuces. See y'all tomorrow. Patron party. It's going down. See y'all.
Well, let this go. Touch your ones like on numb.